Okay, race weekend, Tim Haraney. It's great.
Yes,
and there was a lot of closed roads on the way in today, so it felt like traffic weekend for me. It was
well, you gotta explain. You gotta
oh my God, there
what
was so
happened
much.
here.
Okay, so there's a lot of rain and snow yesterday, and then there was flooding, and then basically one of the main routes to get to work where I record was completely shut down, which meant a 15-minute drive for me turned into an hour. It was unbelievable. So listen, I felt like I was driving the AlphaTauri car from a couple years ago, just slow and not getting anywhere. And it's going to be, Tim, it's going to be a big weekend for a now former AlphaTauri, former V-Carb driver, Yuki Tsunoda, making his Red Bull debut in his home race. And I think that's kind of neat. He did say, and I thought this was really interesting, he did not receive a call, not one call from Helmut Marko. Is that weird? Head of the driver program, is he not?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it sounded
Yuki
like
said
conflicting.
It was weird.
It sounded a bit, Adam, like conflicting stories too. Like I felt like I really didn't hear all of like the stories that happened around the driver swap. So it sounded a little confusing. I don't know if they both got the message or if there was mixed messages. I'm not too sure, but it was a little weird.
It is a little weird. It's a little weird, but you know what? Everything Red Bull does is a little weird. It is, and obviously yesterday we saw the video. Formula One posted it. V-Carb posted it. Racing Bulls now. Liam being welcomed back to the team, which I thought was really nice. It seems like for whatever the public thinks of Liam Lawson, the team really liked him, and they're trying to have a warm welcome back in order to build this guy's confidence back up. Wouldn't it be funny? And people keep saying it if he outqualified Yuki or Max this weekend. I know it's difficult to outqualify Max Verstappen, but it would be kind of interesting, wouldn't it?
Oh my God! I mean, he's in a good drivable car. I don't think it's like we've talked about. It's definitely a car that offers the driver confidence for sure. Yeah, I mean, it could very well happen. It's not. I honestly, I would look at this, Adam, as there is a possibility that he does end up out qualifying Yuki Tsunoda. I mean, he may not, but there is a possibility there that does exist because that car actually is fairly decent.
Yeah. Well, and Max Verstappen was talking about it actually, and he said it was not a mistake that he liked a Instagram post about the Liam Lawson switch, and he said, "You got to perform. The pressure is insane, but in my opinion, sorry, this is the Instagram, obviously, and it's Guido van de Garde.
Yeah,
said basically you got to perform. The pressure is insane, but in my opinion, this comes closer to bullying or a panic move than an actual high athlete achievement. They made a decision, fully aware, gave Liam 2 races only to crush his spirit. Don't forget the dedication, hard work, and success that Liam has put into his career so far to achieve where the level he is right now. Yes, he underperformed the first 2 races, but if anyone is aware of that, it's himself." And Max said, I like the comment, the text, so I guess it speaks for itself, right? It was not a mistake. And people wanted to kind of pry a little bit more out of him, but Tim, one thing I'll give Max credit for is he's like, I'm not dragging this out in the public. He said, I liked it. Our focus is not, they asked him like about, hey, do you think Yuki can be the guy that can be your sort of rear gunner, second in command sort of guy? Mm-hmm. And he said, it's not really about that. It's about improving the car. And that's what I told the team. And that's what I'm focused on. And that's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. So it's not about him not liking Yuki over Liam Lawson or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just that he thinks, hey man, you're pointing your finger at the wrong problem.
Yeah, definitely. And we've spoke about it on here before. I mean, clearly there are points of the team that just aren't really listening to Max and taking him seriously and what he's saying about development areas for this current generation of car, and then also mix in last generation of car as well. So last year's car and the car before that. And obviously Max is just so good that he's just painting over the flaws of this car. We actually did a really good. I hate to, I love plugging my stuff sometimes, Adam.
Do it.
But we did do a really good piece that airs on TSN tonight, as to sort of what is happening with the Red Bull car. How is Max able to sort of, paint over the flaws of it? So that'll be on SportsCenter later tonight. But we did do a deep dive on it. If people want to go and watch that, it'll be on SportsCenter tonight. It'll be on their YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. But it does speak loudly, Max liking Guido van der Garde's post, because I think it shows that, Max doesn't believe it's as easy as swapping out Liam Lawson, bringing in Yuki Tsunoda, and then having a quick fix. It kind of seems like he believes that this is something that takes a while, and that for any driver in that second seat, it's going to be tough, just like it is for Max at the moment at the same time. And for those who don't know who Guido van der Garde is, he's a former professional racing driver, raced in Formula One for Caterham, Sauber. So he does have, F1 experience, raced in, the European Le Mans Championship, Formula 3. Oh God, I can just rattle everything out. 24 Hours of Le Mans, 2023, and post pre all that as well. So
very accomplished guy.
And I don't think he would write something just for the sake of writing something. He's obviously very plugged in, and Max obviously knows him. So this all sort of makes a little bit more sense. It kind of feels like the story is sort of aligning with what I'm hearing, with what's kind of coming out. And same goes for other reporters and insiders as well. The story's starting to make a lot more sense, obviously. And yeah, I think other things that probably are going to help Yuki is the fact that, him getting advice from Pierre Gasly, who did reach out to Yuki a few days before coming into the Japanese Grand Prix, and so did Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, Sergio doesn't have to do that. He really doesn't.
No. Seems
so
like a classy move.
Yeah, for sure. And it does seem like Yuki is getting the drivers' support as well, because I think the drivers who were in that program, driven the car, they know what Liam had to deal with and what Yuki's heading into. And so I think that's actually a really interesting thing or cool thing to see, that he is getting support from other drivers as well. So I think that's a positive.
Is Christian Horner, are Christian Horner and Helmut Marko sort of on the hot seat here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, Adam, I would put them on the hot seat if this doesn't play out to maybe the way they want it to. Mm-hmm. And then if there are rumblings that Max decides that, he may leave Red Bull Racing for 2026 and go somewhere else. I don't know where that would be. And I'm not saying that's something that he's doing. I would just simply say that then they would be on the hot seat, because it's like, you cannot risk losing a talent like Max, especially when you're going into a major regulation change that we are going into for 2026. Mm-hmm. They are going to need Max Verstappen then more than ever, because of the size of the regulation change that they're going through and the amount of experience that Max has that he can bring, and obviously the talent as well. So then I would say they would be on the hot seat. I mean, Adam, put yourself in, Red Bull's parent companies, like the president, put yourself in their shoes, right? You're watching all of everything unfold. What would you do?
Well, I mean, I think you got to wait it out now. You committed to Christian last year when you could have let him go, right? Like so you've got to do this. But I'd be asking some serious questions. You've got a talent, brain drain in Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley and others leaving. all happened within within 18 to 24 months of each other, right? Probably even a shorter time frame than what I'm giving.
Even Rob Marshall leaving as well.
Rob Marshall, yeah, I always forget Rob Marshall. And
that's okay. That's a big one though. That was a big one too.
And I feel like they've been trying to. It's almost like with Max, they know they have something so unbelievably special. It's great. But they almost overcommit to him, or overcommit the cars to him. And what I mean by that, Tim, is that it's not that you don't want to give Max Verstappen every tool to succeed. But do both cars need to be built for Max when he's only driving one of them? Like, it's possible to put different specs on different cars. It is. And at least give it a little bit more forgiveness, I suppose. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
And there's also issues with this car anyway, and Max is able to drive around them. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you're able to pull back on how unforgiving the car is, Max will still be able to drive around that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It all depends on which way they're engineering the car, right, Adam? It's like which way does the engineering staff, the aerodynamicists, what do they think is the fastest way around a racetrack for this car?
Yep.
I mean, if you take a look at what a lot of the other teams are starting to do now with this regulation, it has a lot to do with drivability. It has a lot to do with, okay, we went for big downforce. Like, that's what we tried to push towards. We tried so hard to push in that direction. But at the end of the day, it ended up costing them lap time because of the driver's confidence and where the ride height of the car was and how that just wasn't working at all. So you have other teams now who have pulled back on that and have dove more into what the driver's feeling, the drivability of it. Because if you're going back in time, you're going back to like 2021, 2020, 2019, et cetera, crews, engineers, aerodynamicists pushed for big downforce. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what they pushed for with those cars. And that encouraged more drivability. Mm-hmm. Where now it's like you can't push towards, it seems like you just can't push towards big downforce because it costs you driver confidence.
Right.
Bottoming out is a huge issue, especially in the high-speed stuff. I mean, Haas is starting to experience that now where you get into some high-speed content and the car's like bouncing around. And as a driver, you're just like, back
to 2022 with the porpoising.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like you push towards that, and it seems like you just sort of lose the driver confidence. And where I think the beginning of 2023 with RB19, you saw both drivers, Max and Sergio, performing really well, especially Sergio. Sergio performed really well because I think that's where they were with that. And then try to go off track or go off script and, okay, let's push a little more in this area. Maybe we need a little more rake in the car as well. And then you kind of lose that secret sauce that you were working with. And Max just being able to be incredible and just, again, paint over whatever little flaws were coming, and him telling them like, hey, we're going too much in this direction. Like and this is what I'm feeling and telling you with the car. We need to pull back and we need to think of another direction. Mm-hmm. So I think, Adam, that's not 100% on like Helmut Marko and Christian Horner.
Okay.
They're not the engineers. They're not the aerodynamicists. They're not, Pierre Vacher, like his group, like that's sort of their thing. Right. But I think for Christian and for Helmut, I think it's important to listen to the drivers and what they're telling you.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that in the past with Formula One, like we sort of lost. Like we kind of lost just back in those days that I had mentioned, that driver feedback and how important that is, right? And now it kind of seems like it's getting rediscovered again. And that's, for me, what's so exciting about this regulation and why I think I enjoy it so much is because the driver does play such a huge factor in how the car is getting built.
Yeah. Well, I think that the next few weeks next races, are going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, if you're Red Bull, it's kind of like, how do you reverse engineer what you've already done?
Exactly. How do you pull back?
Yeah, and I think having Yuki there will help in providing an experienced voice saying, this is what I'm feeling. Like, we need to go in another direction, maybe this way. Or this is the way the RB felt, like the Racing Bulls car.
Yep.
And how do we bring that to here? And see what can be worked out? Because Red Bull, I think they believe they can win not only the Drivers' Championship, but they could possibly win the Constructors at the same time because everything is just so close right now.
Of course. Yeah. Now, Tim, we're going to get to our Tim on the sim drive around Suzuka in just Suzuka in just a second here. But I want to go through this because this is important. The weather report. Okay, going to the Weather Network. Okay, and I'm going to go to Suzuka. Ready? I'm looking at it right now.
You can be the weather person today, Adam. Okay?
I am. Okay, weather.
I'll update the weather. I'll update the weather at the end of qualifying.
Well, it looks like it's going to be nice and warm today. Okay, and the Weather Network's upset that I'm not allowing ads on the Weather Network. But here we go. Should be 40% chance of rain during the day on Sunday. And so here we go back to throwing a wild card into the group. Now they're expecting sun, but 40% chance is significant. It's not going to be crazy. Humidity at 50%. So pretty humid, not crazy humid. What do you think that throws into this race for these guys? Like, it seems to be, it's the great equalizer. That might give Red Bull a chance, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I mean, that's going to give a whole bunch of teams a chance at scoring some good points. Or, we had teams that for Australia, right, Adam, it just kind of came out of nowhere and just hung around and were able to score some solid points. I mean, Aston Martin being one of them with Lance Stroll. And I think, and same with Williams as well. That was one that jumps out at me. And then Haas in China they had a great race in China.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Adam, I think like rain is always a good equalizer or the equalizer. So let's sort of see what happens. I still think, when you're going to get rain, you still have those best teams that are going to be close to the front. But yeah, let's see what happens. I love rain, right? It's just great.
Yeah. Oh, it's the best. It's totally the best. Okay. So you know what? Let's get into Tim racing around the track at Suzuka so you can have a nice little on-the-ground preview. All right, race number 3, race fans. And because it is Yuki Tsunoda's home race in Japan, we're going to go racing in an RB today. Sir.
Are we?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going
Racing
RB.
Bulls.
RB.
There we go. There's
and
Yuki's
we
ride.
Want Japan.
Now, Tim, you've had a few laps to warm up on this track.
I had 7, yes.
What can you tell me about it just from an experiential standpoint?
Oh, my God. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I can see why the drivers like it. I've never driven it before. I've never driven it this is first time on a sim with it. And I don't know, the 7 laps are it's challenging. There's a lot of concentration required, but it's a load of fun. You can see why the drivers love doing this track because of the high speed nature of it. And, you drop a wheel on the grass here, you're going into the wall. So it's a very unforgiving racetrack at the same time. That's why I think the drivers like that challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, same with Australia and maybe not so much with China because you can make some bigger errors there and get away with it. But for this track in particular, you can't make a lot of errors, and if you do, it spits you right into the wall. So it's.
Well, we're gonna see how that goes.
Well, we're not gonna get spit into the wall.
Did you get spit into the wall in any of the?
No, I didn't crash. I did go off though.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, going off is
more than
one
once.
thing. Okay, that's fine. One. Now,
okay,
let's see.
All right.
So, looks like a sunny day in Japan.
Yep. So this is, then you're just going to lock up all 4 wheels to start things off. That's perfect. That's this is the infamous chicane with Prost and Senna. Mm-hmm. If you remember that, Adam, when two of them collided with each other.
Yes, please explain that one if you can remember that story.
Well, I'm trying to drive here. That's good.
What?
you were asking me to really
I'm sorry.
Go back into history
What am I here for then? I guess it's time. Well, listen.
Hey, Professor Tim. go back in time in your little time machine.
Well, it would be difficult for me to pull that up.
Okay, so the two of them were fighting. Oh, see?
Oh, and he almost puts it into the wall. Wow.
All right,
Here.
so the two of them fighting for the championship.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can't remember if there was a race after Japan, but Japan used to be one of, if not the last races on the calendar. So Senna and Prost were fairly close on championship points. And I think all Senna needed to do to win the title was he needed to beat Prost in Japan.
Right.
I believe that's what it was. You're going to have to...
Senna and Prost, both McLaren teammates, collided at Suzuka with Senna attempting an overtake. After the collision, Senna was DQ'd for cutting the chicane while joining the race, leading Prost to win the championship. That's what Google says.
Okay, yeah, and then also remember, I think Senna went on to get back into the race.
Yep.
I don't know where he finished, though.
He did. So
he got into the points.
He also, by the way,
Did
Senna
he
had to
win?
pay a $100,000 fine and serve a 6-month ban.
Yes.
And he threatened to retire.
Yeah, because I think a lot of it had to do with the FIA and John, what was his name at the time? Jean-Marie Balestra, who was, I got a call coming in now, too. Someone's calling me.
Someone's called. There's so much going on.
I'm trying to do history lessons here, answer calls.
So here's what Screen Rant has. Are you ready? Prost was the dominant racer for most of the race. Senna wasn't able to pull ahead, but on lap 46, Senna grew desperate. Prost was only 7 laps away from securing the title, leading to Senna to try to overtake him on the inside. Prost wouldn't let Senna pass, causing Senna to crash both cars on the escape road. Prost exited his car, believing that Senna's crash had secured him the title. However, Senna had the marshals give him a bump start, allowing him to get back on track and into the race. And although Senna won the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix, the controversial move led to a massive battle in the world of Formula One. Since Senna cut the chicane during the bump start, the stewards disqualified him. Although Senna appealed to, this is the pre-FIA, this is FISA, or FISA, F-I-S-A, they dismissed the case and let the disqualification stand. Senna had to pay $100,000, serve a 6-month ban. He threatened to retire before changing his mind. He raced again in the 1990 season. Senna and Prost both faced off in Suzuka again. At the first turn on the first lap, Senna crashed into Prost. This ended the race for both drivers.
That's right.
Because of the standings going into the 1990 Grand Prix, Japanese Grand Prix. This led Senna to clinch the title. Oh, you wonder where Michael Schumacher got it from. The parallels between 89 and 90 crashes between Senna and Prost have made the series of events one of the most famous of the duo's rivalry, with one crash earning Prost the title and the other giving it to Senna. So the question now is, did he do it on purpose? And we just don't know. But,
I would have.
Yeah. So you would have. Okay, this is a storied track, and I've got some other stats for you I want to throw at you here. Our stats god, Justin Fisher, dropped these ones on us. Suzuka circuit is 5.8 kilometers in length, 18 corners, and 1 DRS zone. So, Tim, based on your driving here, there are other passing zones that don't require DRS, right? This isn't like a hard to pass track.
Well, I mean, there are some parts of it that are hard to pass. I think a big passing zone, one of them would be here, coming into this turn. You could pull one off at the start of the race. Maybe depending on the life of the tire, maybe you might be able to, get someone when the tires are starting to die. And then you've got that other opportunity up by that chicane.
Right.
I would say those are your, and also the
infamous Prost Senna chicane.
Yeah, you might be able to get one at the hairpin that's kind of coming up here in a little bit. I don't know. That one seems a little more challenging to pull off a pass, I would say.
Unless someone carries a little too much speed and it goes wide.
Well, I think if you just, I don't know. It seems fairly tight, Adam. I think it'd be difficult to pass to really pull off a good pass here, right here.
Max Verstappen has won each of Formula One's last 3 visits to Japan. Lap record of 1:30.989 or 9:83 was set the year by Lewis Hamilton in 2019. So no one has beaten Hamilton's time since then, which is interesting.
Those cars, though, Adam, were had a ton of downforce on them. So this is the type of track where a car like that would really come to life.
Right.
Those cars from 2019, 2020, 2021, they had so much downforce on them, right?
Were they faster cars?
Yeah, for sure. They were super fast cars.
So when someone sets a lap record now, that's a course record. It's really impressive, right? In these cars.
Yeah, I don't.
They're a bit slower, bigger.
I don't think they're. I'm trying to remember. I don't. I'm not like the stats guru here, but I don't think anyone's set a lap record in this new regulation of cars.
Wow.
Have they?
Okay.
That would be, someone can write that in the comments.
We'll have to
Correcting.
find that out. Yeah. Okay. Last little thing here. McLaren has not won in Japan since 2011. Name the driver.
What?
2011.
Yeah, it's okay. 2011.
Oh yeah, you're in a corner. This is bad. Bad
these
timing.
are.
Hang on.
This is a very
windy.
Well, it's challenging.
Okay, so Tim, 2011.
Yeah.
McLaren driver. Last time they won.
In 2011.
Yeah.
A McLaren driver. One here.
Yes. It's not Heikki Kovalainen.
No. Be Lewis.
Not Lewis, but Jensen.
Button. Okay.
Yeah. But it does hold the most Japanese Grand Prix. McLaren does hold the most Japanese Grand Prix wins among constructors, with 9 in total, dating all the way back to 1977, which is kind of wild when you think about it. This is going to be a race that is fascinating as we begin to see the development of the cars on the track, because obviously, we've had one race in Australia where the weather was terrible, couldn't tell much. Now we've had another race in China. You can tell a little bit more, but you need to look at these things in chunks, right?
Yeah.
So 4 and 5 races at a time. The cars that are good at what will succeed today?
Have a lot of downforce on them.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are going to be the strongest cars, or not even just that, but driver friendly. I would say we're starting to see that as a growing trend with these teams, where the engineers were they used to chase downforce, and they're a lot more downforce, this is going to help us, but in fact it actually upset the balance of the car and upset the driver at the same time and their confidence.
Right.
So I think, Adam, we'll see cars that are favorable to giving drivers a lot of confidence do well here.
Okay. Do you have an idea of who those teams might be at this point?
McLaren for sure.
Okay. Yeah, Definitely. They seem to love their car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
the drivers really love it.
After Australia, it was interesting to hear them talk about how the car had sort of a peaky window, and so that's a little concerning, because it sounds kind of like Red Bull territory, right? Where if you don't have a high operating window, then sometimes you can get caught out and really struggle throughout the weekend to find the proper balance for it. Where last year, it always felt like McLaren would show up and they were quick right away.
Right.
Now, with a peaky car with a smaller operating window, that could change things a little bit for them.
Okay, well, I hope it doesn't, because, I might be a little bit biased. But, hey, what are you going to do? Now, I think it's a little unfair.
A little biased.
Tim set his personal best in a Ferrari on this track, I believe.
Yes, it was a Ferrari.
So we made you do a Racing Bulls. Should I shut up and let you take this lap?
No, you can keep going if you want. I'm
okay.
just really just trying to stay ahead of the personal best.
Some of the things to look out for, too, I think, this weekend are the amount of publicity that Yuki Tsunoda is going to have to do.
Which is great.
He's amazing at it. He's a great personality. But, it's I've always find it interesting. It's like Charles Leclerc in Monaco, or, Oscar Piastri or Daniel Ricciardo when he was racing in Australia. They really run you through the gauntlet. And I'm always curious about how those drivers do. Sometimes, Checo in Mexico, they really ran up there, and they're at the end of the weekend, they're exhausted.
And they should be. You have so many media obligations at that point, so it's. Ricardo was always interesting, because I think it was back in, if I remember correctly, it was either 2018 or 2019. He actually had them start to shut down some of his media obligations, because he was just finding he couldn't focus enough on the race.
Right.
So, I wouldn't be surprised if
Yuki maybe is the same thing.
Yeah.
Perhaps, too, you got to remember that Formula One was on the upswing at that point.
Yeah.
And I bet the media obligations, doubled overnight, right, after those first couple seasons, Drive to Survive.
I would say, these guys get so many requests, for media. I don't know, Adam, you can speak to... Did I just beat my personal best?
I think you did. Oh, talking and beating his personal best. Tim Horaney getting on the simulator and just kicking ass. Let's go, Tim. Who cares how this next lap goes, baby? Let's go.
But like, hold on a second. Take me through, and like Jesse's probably pretty up on this too because he goes to the Leafs games and everything for the media. Like, what are players in hockey like? Right? Like, how easy is it for you to get a one-on-one with them?
The interesting thing is, it's first off with the Leafs, it's not like it doesn't matter. So in hockey, in basketball, in football, whatever, they have really, really good set times, right? It's rhythm. Certain players will be allowed out before the game, certain players after the game. In hockey terms, it's like morning skate, that sort of thing, and then they obviously have a chat after morning skate, and then they'll talk to the coach, and then they'll have the game, and then the Leafs will send out, 3-4 players? So Jesse's behind the camera. So, and they'll choose. It used to be that you get to walk into their dressing room, just talk to whoever you want. Some teams still allow that. Most teams are moving away from that in order to protect them from the exact same things, because especially after a loss, what I love about what Formula One does is no matter what happens, you're doing the media. And so if you crash on lap 3, you do the media early with the car still going in the background, but you still have to do it. And I think because it's such an event, right? Whenever this is how Formula One is, like, we have a Super Bowl 24 weekends a year, right? In a different country. And it's true. So they got to do it. But what I think is different is that there's a real personal pride element when a driver goes to their home track. And this is where it gets tough for a guy like Yuki. Have you talked to Yuki?
I have, yeah.
What's he like, actually?
Nice.
He seems like a funny guy.
Yeah, he's pretty nice. I remember talking to him for the first time, when he first started in Formula One, he was pretty shy.
Yeah.
Then he kind of backed away from the microphone sometimes, which is understandable. I probably would have done the same.
Yeah.
But he's a super nice guy. I would say from the media perspective, it's interesting because broadcasters or print journalists or whatever, they'll always, not always, but for the most part, they'll try and get those sit-down interviews whenever they can, and usually those happen on a Thursday. So it's different from hockey and the way you describe it, because Austin Matthews, every game he goes to or plays, right?
Yep.
Would be someone asking him for a sit-down interview.
Right.
Same thing goes with Lewis Hamilton and Tsunoda and everybody, right?
Yep.
Every week, that's what they're getting.
Every
race weekend.
Yep.
So it's a lot, right?
Well, and Tim, we're gonna wrap it here, but I think you did.
Trash.
Listen, you're hating this lap. You know what though? You didn't need to follow up because the last lap was your personal best. Damn it! All right. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, we do this every single race weekend. So look out for Tim and his frustrating sim adventures. Yay! He did set a personal best though. Now, Tim, something I want to talk about is the start of Carlos Sainz with Williams. Obviously, he was very helpful in the first race, even though he wasn't racing in it because he spun out. Second race, probably not where he wanted to be. Can you talk a little bit about his start with Williams and how you think they're going to be this weekend?
Yeah, interesting to hear from Carlos today during media day, and some of his comments were interesting. I mean, it really sounds like he's trying to find the driving style that works best for the car and for him. And changing your style is very difficult to do because of it just is ingrained in your process.
Yes.
And like any athlete, how they do anything, throw a football, stick handle, score a goal, slap shots, what's their wind up and setup like, all that kind of stuff, right? And you're having to sort of change that muscle memory of what you sort of need, or what the car actually sort of needs to get the last little bit out of it.
Yep.
For Carlos, it sounds like the entry to the corner has become a bit of a problem, and that's going to take some time for him to work out. I think what did he say? I think, what did I saw? I think it was like 10 races. He felt that it would probably take him to sort of get that muscle memory for what he needs to do. Now that could be breaking at him, because essentially, entering a corner, it's like, I always try to coach young drivers when I tell them it's look, like your braking phase is extremely important. Not many coaches teach the braking as important as I do, because I think braking is extremely important because it's the first domino to fall in that cornering phase. It's the initial application of the brake pedal with the bleed off of the brake pedal, because there's a lot happening with the car in transition and going into the corner if it's a trail braking type of a corner.
Yep.
Or if that's part of your style. So for Carlos, I think that's something that he may need to work on a little more by the sounds of it. And it sounds like it really comes into the light when he's under pressure for qualifying.
Okay.
Because you're having to think more about it.
Right.
You're having to think more about the process of that braking, bleed off, turn in, or braking, bleeding off while you're turning the car in, getting a bit of rotation if you need it. That sort of phase sounds like what it is. And then also on top of that, it's trying to ingrain that as muscle memory.
Right.
Getting that done so you don't have to think about it when you're in qualifying.
I mean, brakes were one of the things that threw Daniel Ricciardo and even Lando Norris off in Daniel's first sort of season with McLaren, right? Where he was really underperforming and people were asking why. Brakes were a big issue. Yeah.
Sometimes it can be switching. Like, I remember for some of the drivers, we're going back.
Yeah.
I want to say 2017 GP2. And they went from using one type of a brake pad to another for 2018. Mm-hmm. And I know some drivers who were very good on the brakes with the type of brake pad they were using. They were good at braking late, but then when they switched over to a different type of a brake pad compound rotor, it threw a lot of the drivers off. Like, it was harder for them to get back to where they were with the success they had with late braking. I know we're getting really into the weeds with all the braking stuff, and it can be quite complicated, but I think Adam, that's always something when you go to a different team. I think the way they design their brakes, the way they design the pads, how do they want them, but those are all things that the driver can work at to bring it to them with the engineers and all that kind of stuff. So Ricciardo was struggling with a little bit more than just that at McLaren, but again, that's sort of the small little snippet of bigger problems. Really.
Yeah, we'll be honest, that McLaren car wasn't great for a couple of years there. So
it wasn't
not awesome. Okay, so we expect Carlos Sainz to adjust and hopefully see some better results. I mean,
I think so. I feel that way anyways, because, Adam, it's when you look at his improvement as a driver, he's always been really good at just figuring out the tough stuff. I mean, being at Ferrari and having a certain way of driving with that particular car, and then switching over to Williams and the way that car needs to be driven, right? They're two different things, and you do have to accommodate for whatever the Williams machine has to offer.
Right, sure. I mean, it's always interesting when a veteran driver does that. The great thing with Carlos Sainz, though, is that his work ethic is unmatched. Known for busting his ass, basically. Like, he's a hard worker.
Absolutely. That makes up so much. Whenever you're having problems, that work ethic is just so important.
Now, Sauber, or Stake F1 team, already has more points this season than they had the entirety of last season, which is
Adam,
great for them.
Hold on. Did you like the steak?
Oh, yeah, the Stake F1 livery. Yeah, that was funny. It was funny. It was cute. I like that. It wasn't like the most hilarious thing I've ever seen, but I mean, if they'd actually put it on the car and raced it around the track, then I would have thought it was really fun. Like, commit to the bit. Get out there in Suzuka. Make it a Kobe beef steak livery. Like, make it something that actually, relates to where you're at. Like, if you were in Brazil, you could be like Brazilian steakhouse steak, whatever it is, because it comes on a sword. So delicious. But I would say that them scoring points, even if they don't get a lot of the next few races or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a good start. And Jonathan Wheatley started there as team principal officially on April 1st. And it is not an April Fool's joke. No. It's real. He's actually there. And that's a big get for them. They've gone through several team principals, right? They've gone, Mattia Binotto is there. Andreas Seidel was there. Now they've got Jonathan Wheatley, who is the team principal. Tim, what does this guy bring to this team? Will there be immediate impacts, or is this something where you got to measure this in months, not weeks?
Yeah, it has to be measured in months. Jonathan Wheatley when he was at Red Bull, I always found that he was a very commanding presence. The team, the engine, like the crew on the ground had a lot of respect for him. In some instances, he was kind of like the head coach for Red Bull Racing. He always made sure to have meetings with everybody. I remember a big meeting that he had in Bahrain with all of the crew, all the mechanics, everybody gathered around. And that's a huge sign of respect for him. Like that team really respected him and what he brought to the table. And he made sure that his crew was taken care of. I think for Sauber, this is a huge get. I think he's a very team-oriented guy. I think he could be good at building that team chemistry, which I think for a young team such as Sauber, which will soon be Audi, is very important, especially when you have that transition of big OEM coming into a smaller team. And how do you build that out and maintain good communication between all of your different departments? And I think that's going to be crucial for him to get started with. I think having Mattia Binotto there is also really a great idea, because I think he can help support him in that as well, because Mattia is sort of similar in that way. Making sure that fostering a good team atmosphere, I think, is going to be very important for that team moving forward, because there could be some very difficult days for them, Adam, in the next few years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, God, to go along with all their difficult days previously, too, right? It's not like things have been going great. But it seems like they've got some real great personnel in there now. And Bortoletto and Hulkenberg seem like a nice driver pairing. Bortoletto can develop. Hulkenberg can hold the fort now. I think you've got an exciting future for Audi. And who knows what the regulations will bring next year, too. Like Gunther Steiner, I think, was talking about it on his podcast that he doesn't think Max Verstappen's going to leave Red Bull until at least after 2026, because he wants to wait and see who's good in the regulations, right? The thing is, when the regulation changes, okay, well, maybe I stay with Red Bull, see how they do, see how everybody else does, and if I want to make the jump, then I can make the jump. So that was, I thought, an interesting point of view. I don't know if that's true, but worth it, interesting to talk about, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, Tim, there has been, and we got comments actually on one of our videos about, like, guys, stop talking about the V10 thing. It's not going to happen. Stop trying to make fetch happen. So you have
Why wouldn't anybody want V10s?
Well, I think they want it to happen, but they don't believe it. And I get it. I get it. Like, they're like, stop listen to those rumors, like, blah, blah, blah. Tim, what is your update on that? Because ultimately Formula One fans want it. When we had people were commenting on it, like, it can't be 2026. It probably can't be 2028. When could it be?
That's a good question. Hearing from some of the drivers today, few of them were asked about it, especially those that have new engine manufacturers that are coming over to their teams. I think it's probably, when even the drivers are saying, like, hey, like, let's just, get this regulation started. There was a lot of money that's been invested. We're already so far down this road. We can't really go back at this moment.
Yep.
Let's see what we've got. And then when the next regulation hits, then we should be talking about what we're going to do. A lot of them would love to, I shouldn't say a lot of them, because I didn't hear from, I would say some of them. I'll say a handful are interested in V10s or even V8s, something that makes the car smaller, something that makes the car lighter. was what I heard the most. And then obviously the excitement of the engine and the noise that it brings is also something that, for all of us, what did Toto call us? Dinosaurs, I guess.
Yes.
For myself, I don't feel like a dinosaur, but I mean, they're exciting, right? Like you fire up a V10 and or a V8 somewhere, it's going to capture your imagination. So having some of that excitement come back into F1, I don't think can be a horrible thing. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the folks who I heard from, it just simply sounds like, look, we're already too far down this road.
Yeah.
And we need to play it out and see what happens because a lot of money has been invested in it.
Yes.
And then we'll start making decisions. So,
okay.
Which is fair, which is fair. Like, I don't want to be super critical of the new regulation because I haven't seen everything just yet. I haven't heard, what the engines are going to be like exactly. Haven't heard even what the aerodynamic regulation is going to sound exactly like, right? So it could lead to some exciting stuff. There's always teething issues.
Yes.
There was a good article that Jonathan Noble wrote, and it was about some time he spent in the off season with Mercedes and speaking with some of the engine designers for this new hybrid technology that's coming into play. Really good article, just explaining different components within the engine that now you can't change, but when in 2014 arrived, there were lots of different things that you could change. Split turbo is one of the ones that Mercedes patented and did so well with that people couldn't really figure out. Why is Mercedes so strong in those early years of that V6 hybrid engine? That was one of the reasons why, but other teams couldn't figure out why.
Okay.
So just having stock components where it's like, hey, you can't change this in the engine. You can't do this with it either. And you can't do this. And this is the way we need everything to line up inside the V6. And then the battery technology as well is going to be very important. Trying to get, I think it's like 350 kilowatts like out of the battery. And then the harvesting of it all is going to be, it sounds like that's where a lot of the technology and the refining will need to happen. And the deployment, how do you get it? Where do you get it? How does it come back to you, right? Obviously through, the MGUK, which is the motor generator unit kinetic. So it's kinetic energy, recharging the battery. How does that work? So
got it.
Yeah. I know we heard like nightmares of like drivers having to downshift on straightaways and stuff like that, like the harvest energy. I don't know if that again.
I hope not.
I mean, reading the article, it didn't really sound or look like it, but
no.
But I encourage people to check that out. It was a really good written piece from Jonathan Noble. It was really good.
Well, whenever you have a regulation change, you get crazy rumors. You do. You just get crazy stuff kind of.
Oh, yeah. There.
So, it's to be expected. That's part of the fun. So we'll.
It's part of the fun. All
it is fun.
And everything.
Well, it is part of the fun because it's like, well, last year, if you believed all the reports, it was going to be the worst engine anybody'd ever heard of. Terrible, going to ruin the sport. Now people are saying, well, it's getting better. It's like, well, it's because they're refining it. I'm curious to see. I also like the fact that next year the cars get smaller. I think that's better for the sport. The cars are too big. I want the whole point about Formula One is they're supposed to be rocket ships that are tiny. I think it's supposed to be as efficient as possible. I understand there's a safety element. I get that. I'm not asking for the 1970s and 1980s to come back, but I do think they need to be a little smaller, and you can still make them safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, light, nimble.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It would make races like Monaco way better. Like,
yes.
Like it just would. So
100%. Well, it turns it into a race, not a parade, right?
Yes.
Okay. Last thing before we go here. Tim, this weekend in Suzuka, we've got, I think, 3 teams that are just super fast. We've got McLaren, we've got Mercedes, and we've got Ferrari. Red Bull, I think, is, without Max Verstappen, there is some talk that would be one of the slower cars on the grid. And there's some evidence to that. Who do you think's the fastest car Give me the 1, 2, 3.
Well, McLaren, they obviously still have their advantage.
Yep.
Mercedes, Ferrari, I'm going to be interested to see where those two end up. They've had a week off to go over a lot of the data from Australia, a lot of the data from China, and I think they'll arrive a little more competitive than they were maybe the previous two races. Obviously, Ferrari was competitive in the sprint race, but when we saw them get disqualified at the end of the Chinese Grand Prix, that speaks that there are a few little issues that they're still having to deal with.
Absolutely.
or look into. It'll be a toss up between those two. I think I'll be interested to see where the Red Bull is in the high speed stuff, because Red Bull was really great at Suzuka over the past few seasons, especially in the high speed content. I'll be fascinated to see where they kind of shake out. I mean, it could be like a Lando Norris, Max Verstappen front row. Like we don't really know exactly where everyone is going to be, but it's going to be an important weekend, I think, for Oscar Piastri. He's got to try and gain back some points that he had lost from Australia, that race where he finished like 9th or something like that.
Yep.
It'll be important for him. Obviously for Lando to hold on to his lead in the Drivers' Championship as well, because Max is like right there.
Yes.
So that's going to be a storyline to pay attention to. And same goes for the Constructors. Where's Mercedes going to end up in all this? I mean, they've been consistently scoring points in the past 2 races with both of their drivers doing very good jobs, especially George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. He's been doing fantastic as well.
He's been amazing. He's been amazing. Great
big
start.
Time. So, important to see where those guys kind of shake out, because as the season moves along and the cars get developed, I think Mercedes will start to really play a factor here. And then I'm curious to see where the midfield is. Like it is really competitive in the midfield.
It is. It's fun.
I think Racing Bulls is at the top, and then you've kind of got Alpine, Williams, Aston Martin's now starting to mix themselves in there as well. So that will be interesting. Haas is bringing a new floor to their car. They've really fast-tracked floor to their car for those who are interested. Haas was suffering with we talked about this on previous shows, but suffering with a lot of porpoising or oscillation within the high-speed sections in Australia.
Yep.
And their car just really looked just horrible.
Yep. Yeah.
In Australia, but got to China, and I think the smooth surface, the repaved track really helped them.
Oh, yeah, no question.
And that allowed them to really show what their car could do. But coming to Suzuka, had to fast track a floor to their car because of the high speed nature of Suzuka. I don't think you want to have oscillations within the S section, which is the first sector, or the 130R. Like you don't want oscillations through those corners,
Right.
So I think free practice 1 is going to be really important for that team. If they can't get to grips to the new floor, then they may have to revert back to the old stuff and try and figure it out. So it could be a difficult weekend for Haas, or it could be a positive one. And I think for Io Komatsu, that's where his head's at, right? It's like this car is either going to be a monster or it's going to work, and we're going to know in a few laps in free practice 1. So Haas will be an interesting storyline to sort of follow at the beginning of this weekend as well. So Adam, lots of stuff obviously on the table there. Formula One, right? It's always got lots of stuff for us, man.
It's the best. It's the best.
It's a gift that keeps on giving.
And listen, it's great because I'm just looking at the schedule here. So Japanese Grand Prix. Practice
late nights for us, Eastern time zone.
Oh yeah. So 10:30 tonight is free practice 1, then 2 a.m. Then for free practice 2, free practice 3, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Friday, and then Saturday morning at 2 a.m. My friend, it will be the Japanese Grand Prix qualifying. So
and we'll
not
do
a sprint weekend, but
we'll do a post qualifying podcast as well. Pretty sure I'll tape that at 4 in the morning.
Yeah, and you'll be like, "Hey guys, I just tired, but we'll get this done." But anyway, it's gonna be fun. It's going to be real fun.
Yeah,
so, Tim, best of luck this weekend. Try to get some sleep, and we will see you Monday, sir.
Copy that.